Well, we asked for it, and here it is. Well, what is this? Well, this is the BMW i4 Gran Coupe xDrive40. When the BMW i4 launched a couple years ago, it came in a rear-wheel drive model and then a pricey performance version, the M50, that was the only way you could get all-wheel drive. But now we have this, the xDrive40, which is all-wheel drive, and it's not too hot, not too cold. It's in between the entry-level rear-wheel drive model and the top-end performance M50. So this has 279 miles of EPA-rated range, 396 horsepower, and seems to be the sweet spot in the BMW i4 lineup. So let's take a look at how it performs and if this is the one that you want. Eventually, BMW EVs will be able to use Tesla's network of superchargers, but now we're just using compatible CCS chargers. And I had a pretty good experience fast charging the i4 on a DC fast charger. I charged the i4 from 12 to 80%, and that took 30 minutes while adding 175 miles of range. And that works out to 5.8 miles of range added per minute. And this is very close to what our long-term test car, Tesla Model Y, would add at superchargers. Which is to say, still slower than the 9 miles of range added per minute we've observed from cars like the Hyundai Ioniq 5, Kia EV6, or Genesis electrified G80. I preconditioned the i4 prior to charging and right off the bat observed the maximum 205 kilowatts of power, where then it slowly tapered off until I got to the end of the charging test at 80%. And that's almost identical to how our Model Y charges. Unfortunately, DC fast charging tests rarely go smoothly, and this one was no exception, and also not the fault of the BMW, because as soon as I plugged in, a message popped up on the dashboard that said, "Charging aborted, charging station error." The 2024 i4 has a nearly identical interior to the gas-powered 2024 4 Series Gran Coupe, which got updates for this year. And what that means, though, is the biggest advantages you're going to see compared to a Tesla Model 3, for example, is a physical gear selector versus the redesigned Model 3's in-screen gear selector, an actual instrument panel, digital instrument panel, versus the Model 3 that has nothing. And on this car, it has a head-up display, which unfortunately doesn't work that well with polarized sunglasses, but otherwise is really nice to have. So the interior is nice if this were about $50,000, but the as-tested price of $78,000, it is not looking especially hot. This optional leather interior still kind of looks like imitation leather, and the accents and stitching here just look appropriate for a less expensive vehicle. The center touchscreen incorporates climate controls, so there aren't any physical climate controls, and this has never really worked that well. There are controls here that I would much rather have in a physical location that's easier to access. It takes multiple steps to turn on recirculation, for example. You can also use the voice controls to do some of these commands, but it just doesn't beat having physical controls. I would definitely ditch certain aspects of how this car is equipped, like the M Sport package or the optional leather. I was looking at the option sheet on this car, and there's definitely about $8,000 of stuff that I would just not get and feel much better about how much this car costs. The biggest change in dimensions versus the gasoline-powered 4 Series Gran Coupe is in the backseat, where there's 7/10 less of an inch of legroom. And otherwise, it's still pretty tight back here. Not totally comfortable and big and relaxed like a larger vehicle, but that's what you get for this sporty shape. And also what you get with this sporty shape in the plus column is this is a hatchback. So the cargo area opens up to an open cargo area and the back seats fold, and you've got SUV-like cargo versatility from this nice swoopy shape. The xDrive40's horsepower of 396 is up from the rear-wheel drive model's 281 horsepower and down from the M50's 536 horsepower. And if you think 396 still sounds like a lot, yes, you're right, 396 horsepower is a lot. On the other side, when you look at overall power to weight ratio, the xDrive40 is a heavy vehicle. Now, it doesn't always feel like it's heavy, but it weighs 5,000 pounds. And that is as much as a BMW X5 SUV. So there is quite a bit of heft here. And we timed 0 to 60 miles an hour in 4.7 seconds, which is a little bit quicker than what BMW says it should do at 4.9 seconds. And the 4.7 seconds is about in line with what we've tested on our long-range all-wheel drive Model Y at 4.8 seconds before we unlocked acceleration boost in the Model Y. More important than numbers, though, is just how the acceleration feels. And yes, you get that expected low-speed EV torque and lots of acceleration pull, but there's something a little strange about the way the i4 accelerates, and it kind of feels like when you're in a manual transmission car in gear and you slam on the accelerator, there is kind of a thud, kind of a whomp. You can hear it, you can feel it. And otherwise, the acceleration is smooth and quiet like you would expect, but when you really want to accelerate, it's not quite as refined or as smooth as a Tesla Model 3, for example. Our car is equipped with the premium package, and that includes an iconic sounds electric mode where when you turn it on, the drive sound is adjusted depending on your driving mode. So what better way to show you what it sounds like than let's turn it on, go in the drive modes, and give you an example of what it sounds like. All right, so here is Eco Pro. Gonna floor it. Now we're in comfort, and your ears did not deceive you. That sounded like nothing. Now I'm in comfort. Gonna floor it again. Okay, got a little spaceship-y there. Now let's put it in sport mode. And gonna floor it. Oh yeah, very spaceship-y right there. And basically, none of them sound natural. None of them actually sound like the vehicle as you're driving, unlike Porsche, which does a great job in its EV, making it sound like a natural. So we're gonna turn it off. Yes, the i4 is heavy, but it actually hides its weight pretty well while cornering. You don't get a feel for how much weight there is unless you're really thrashing on the car, and I would expect most people aren't going to do that. It has an adaptive suspension. Comfort mode is comfortable, and sport mode does its best to manage the weight with relatively flat handling, but I definitely got a feel that the suspension was working pretty hard to manage all of that weight. And before the new Tesla Model 3 was introduced, I would say that this BMW definitely had an advantage as far as ride quality and quietness over the Model 3, but I'm not so sure anymore. I've spent a little bit of time in the redesigned Model 3, and its ride and handling balance was exceptional. It was quiet at highway speeds, it rode really nicely without big impacts, and it also handled really well too. So where before BMW was the clear choice as far as everyday drivability, I'm not quite sure, although I would like to drive them back to back. Over our test, which has been a couple hundred miles, I've been observing 3 miles per kilowatt hour. And that equals about 240 miles of overall range when you consider the usable battery energy, which is about 80 kilowatt hours. And that's not too bad when you consider I've been driving for evaluation and not purely for efficiency. And the car also tells you its lifetime energy usage, which on this car over 2,000 miles is also 3 miles per kilowatt hour. So that just kind of gives you an idea of what to expect in real world observed efficiency. The i4 xDrive40 is definitely the most well-rounded i4. I didn't feel like I lost a whole lot from driving the M50, and you get all-wheel drive, which you didn't get on the 35. It's a who should be looking at the i4. I definitely think if you're in the BMW family and are looking at an EV, yes, check out the i4. You shouldn't have too many surprises. It's easy to drive. There are fairly normalized controls. And also, if you're looking at a Tesla Model 3 and you're not a big fan of the controls and the screens, absolutely, the i4 makes a lot of sense. And within the i4 family, if you've been put off by the high price of the M50 or the no all-wheel drive in the 35, the xDrive40 is the proverbial Goldilocks of the i4 lineup. For more Cars.com expert reviews, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications.